Hi everyone, Naziman here. 10.2 is like almost here, right? Next reset, we're gonna play season 3. So that of course means I need to question myself, what am I even going to play? And in this video right here, I wanted to go over the different tanks, because in a previous video, I talked a little bit about what role I was interested in playing. I did play for DPS in season 2, and I ended up wanting to switch it up to tank. So in this video, I kind of want to go through the different tanks, my thought process. Will I main it, or will I just ult it, or am I just thinking, you know what, I'm not gonna play this at all? And I want to highlight my thought process, what actually do I think about when I'm thinking about what main I'm going to play. So yeah, let's get right into it. I just want to preface this by saying that I've been spending the last week leveling up and gearing up all the different tanks and making sure that they are ready for season 3, because even though that I have clearly picked out some ults here and I picked out some mains, I do want every tank to be kind of geared and kind of ready to go if something should change or I want to delve into anything here. So a lot of the footage, unfortunately, is going to be lower keys and time walking dungeons here and there, because that was the footage that I could get in the time before season 3 comes out. So let's start this off by talking about the Death Knight. Now, the Death Knight is actually a super interesting tank. It's kind of been flying under the radar ever since it lost its tier set back in season 4 of Shadowlands, where it was extremely broken. And actually doing Dragonflight, it has actually gotten, I'm putting in my notes here, silently being buffed, but they actually just have been straight up being buffed multiple times. They're both their damage and their survivability. And it's always kind of been unnoticed, but right now the Death Knight is actually a really, really great tank. So the Death Knight's whole gimmick or mechanic is the fact that it will heal back the damage it takes through Death Strike. So what that actually means in practice is that you don't really need other people in order for keeping yourself alive. That's 100% your responsibility and in your capacity to actually do so. You can absolutely, this is the ultimate solo tank. If you don't want to deal with healers or anything, you just play the Death Knight and you'll be well done here. It is incredible at just soloing everything. There is gonna be so many moments on the Death Knight where your entire party dies, maybe on probably on a boss fight or something like that, and you will just have to solo it, and it's gonna be a no problem for you because all your healing basically just comes from yourself. And it's not just Death Strike that's incredible defensively on the Death Knight. You have so good defensive utilities and cooldowns. Dancing Rune Weapon will spawn up to 2 extra weapons that will just copy your attacks, meaning that if you're using Death Strike, you will all of a sudden heal for 2 times as much as before, as well as generating more bone shields or more runic power, all that good fun. And it has an inbuilt cooldown reduction, meaning that you just get it up even more and faster, which means actually that you will have Dancing Rune Weapons up for most pulls. Compare that to your Vampiric Blood, which I honestly think is one of the best defensive cooldowns in the entire game, and especially the way it works with the Death Knight. Because what it does, it actually increases the amount of, first of all, increases your maximum health, but then it also increases your healing intake. And not just other people's, or not just your own, every single healing that you get, either if it's from the healer or from you or someone else, it'll get buffed. Now, to supplement all those great defensive cooldowns, you also just have your passive mitigation, or your active mitigation with Bone Shield that increases your armor and reduces therefore the damage you take overall, as well as the Blood Shield, where every single time you overheal with Death Strike, you will get an Absorb Shield, and it's not that uncommon to have it up almost all the time. And it's great not to feel that you have to worry about overhealing, but you're actually only getting more benefits out from it. It is no secret that the Death Knight has an incredible defensive toolkit. And they have been quite known for quite a bit that, they are almost unkillable, especially if you play them correctly. But the thing that's like the quirk about the Death Knight for the longest time has been just the fact that, yeah, they are amazing defensively, but they do almost no damage or just really, really bad damage. But that's actually no longer the case. And honestly, it hasn't been the case since, I don't know, Dragonflight? And it kind of like stems from, as I mentioned in the beginning of this segment, that the Death Knight has just been receiving a bunch of the buffs, especially for their damage. And that means that right now, even though they might not be the tank that does the most damage, they do extremely well and are definitely like competing with the other tanks. And going into Season 3, we are going to have like, you know, an even better tier set that is like, you know, honestly just looking like it's gonna like do nothing but buff the DK's damage and just make them even more defensive, like better defensively next season, as well as getting access to the legendary, which, yeah, that is gonna like have a huge impact on their power. So the Death Knight is unkillable, and it does a really great like damage, and it has a legendary, so why am I not gonna main it? And there's actually two reasons that I have decided to keep the Death Knight as an ult, because I think I definitely want to keep playing the Death Knight, especially also because it is the tank that I have the least amount of experience with. But I really want to like delve into a little bit more of the Death Knight, even though I have played it, but it's been a while. It's back in BFA, I delved in it a little bit. But the first reason for why I'm not picking the Death Knight is simply just the mobility and kind of the slowness of the Death Knight. Now, this is not a specifically Blood Death Knight issue. It actually is just a general Death Knight issue here, or problem. It's the fact that they are just incredibly slow, both in their mobility wise. Like you really have few options, and you don't really, you know, pick the Wraith Walk, which means from like getting from point A to B, you only kind of you're just relying on your Death Advance or like the 2 stacks of it, which, you know, also decreases in movement speed the longer you have it up. Now, for like a DP aspect, like, you know, for Unholy or Frost, this might be annoying, but not really that huge of a problem. But for a tank, this is, in my opinion, actually a bit of a hassle, because the tank's movement and his movement speed and how fast he can go from one pack to the next one and actually keep ahead of the rest of the party has a direct input on, like, you know, how long this dungeon is gonna be, or like how fast you can actually get through it, right? And this doesn't mean that you can't go fast or speed tank as a Death Knight. It just means that you kind of have to think about your movement or pre-plan it, how much, like when you're gonna start moving way before you have to do on other tanks. That's kind of the reality on the Death Knight, if you don't want to just like fall behind the rest of the party, or having the rest of the party waiting for you to catch up, which is absolutely horrible as a tank. Now, the second reason why I decided to choose the Death Knight as an ult rather than a main, and this is something I think is extremely important when you're thinking about what mains you want to like pick, and that is like you're not just choosing a spec, you are actually choosing a class. And playing a tank, there are going to be moments where I just want to do something else, or I just want to DPS, or I want to heal, or I want to do something, and it's incredible to have that option on the character that you are playing. So the reason why I'm not picking the Death Knight as a main is simply just that I am not that into Unholy or Frost Death Knight. It's something I can play, and it's definitely something I probably should be like playing some more, because but yeah, no, it has never really clicked for me. I played Death Knight back in Wrath of the Lich King a lot, Frost Death Knight, but ever since the rework and all that kind of stuff, I haven't really tried it out. I did, but it hasn't never really like just been for me. So that's actually like those two DPS specs, not really wanting to delve into them, is actually what's gonna leave the Death Knight on an ult status for me. Let's talk about the Monk. Now, the Monk is actually a super interesting tank to pick out right now. I honestly think that Monk has just been the absolute sleeper pick throughout the entirety of like Dragonflight. I ended Dragonflight Season 1 with playing a lot of the monk. And I was honestly really surprised by the defensive utility, how much you can actually live, and as well as I'm going to talk about in just a few seconds, how much control you have over your own health bar. But I was also just surprised about the amount of damage you can dish out and just the level of control you have over the different pulls and packs and stuff like that. And that all kind of just stayed true for Monk in Season 2, even though the tier set it's okay, it's a damage increase and it increases your dodge chance, but it's not really, it's kind of like, yeah, it's an okay tier set. But going into Season 3, that tier set is actually going to be absolutely amazing. And now we will have even more control over our health bar, since we will start doing more fire damage, but then also just healing from that fire damage. And if you check your damage on a monk, most of it is going to be fire related. So the quirk about the monk has always been about their passive mitigation, which is stagger, which is a really interesting mechanic, I think at least, where instead of taking the full front of the damage when you get hit, instead you will take it like a small percentage immediately, and the rest of the damage you will actually take as like a dot. And what that will do is actually completely eliminate your health bar ever spiking. If you ever seen, your health all of a sudden drop down to 20% or like back up again, it will completely like eliminate that and actually make you so much easier and nicer just to heal, because it will just like slowly but gradually going like further down. And that has kind of been the monk's like quirk a little bit here. Like, you won't get one-shotted ever, but you are also quite healer dependent, because you don't really have the self-sustain. And so like, yeah, your health will like go slowly down, but you do need a healer to actually heal you up. You won't be able to do that like at all yourself. But that's actually not really the case anymore. So just, expel harm, which is, so the monk will actually, from taking damage, but also just from dealing damage themselves, will spawn these orbs, kind of like on the demon hunter, where like if you press expel harm, you will like suck them all up and then heal yourself for a really big amount. And that amount is actually incredibly crazy. You can go from like, really critical health to full health every, 15-ish seconds. Besides that, you have, of course, your brews and your celestial brew, which can give you an insanely huge amount of like absorb shield, which can be like life-saving in so many different situations, and with a lot of cooldown reduction built into the talent tree and into the monk itself. These like cooldowns and these brews are up very often. And let's not forget about that the monk has also like extremely great mobility. Not only do you have your big like movement buff that you can give to yourself or other players if you desire, but you can also get up to like 3 rolls where you like roll really quickly forward. Meaning that it actually it can go really fast. It has easy like speed tanking dungeons, incredibly easy going from like pack to pack and getting ahead of the rest of the party. Without like going extremely way too far or anything like that. But yeah, monk is definitely, I think, the second on the mobility, only beaten by the demon hunter. And then you have extremely great utility. You have Ring of Peace, you have AoE stun, you have your dispel. Yeah, all in all, like you have a lot of like utility to deal with different packs, and actually also you might not be able to stun lock them or like keep them from casting as long as like maybe other tanks can do, but you have great utility to deal with the different packs. And for the other specializations, so for Mistweaver and Windwalker, in my opinion, like I wouldn't mind playing Windwalker Monk. It's not my favorite melee DPS, but I really wouldn't mind playing it at all. Mistweaver I actually haven't played that much. I think last time I played it was back in Legion, so quite a while. And so that would actually, I'm actually up to having a completely new spec on a main, that I can go in and can just like look over and actually like delve myself into if I need a week or two off my of Brewmaster. I can go into doing that. So I actually don't hate the different specs that the monk offers, but monk is still gonna stay as an alt for me, and for a very like clear reason and big in my opinion, a huge negative of the monk. So the big issue for Brewmaster for me is simply just button bloat. You have so many abilities and you have so much stuff that just feels completely unnecessary to have, but you just take it because, well, it's a damage increase, so why not? And honestly, it's not really like, the real issue is simply just a talent tree. Now the monk is fundamentally extremely strong and very, very fun. Your rotation with the Kex match that reduces the cooldowns of your brews, the way you have your interaction with Stagger, which is passive, but you actually do have some interaction with it, is absolutely great. You have amazing defensive values, but the talent tree is just so extremely bloated, and it really just seemed like Blizzard don't really know what to do with the monks, so they just threw in kind of everything and just saw kind of what stuck. Like, for example, we have 2 Covenant abilities in our talent tree, which is... why? Why do we have that? Do any other class have that? I don't think so. It really, for me, seemed like monk needed some new abilities, or it really just seems like they need like a talent rework, and that's like the difference here, because like the fundamentals of Brewmaster here is great, it's incredible, but like it's all the other stuff around it. Why do we need tiger statue, like the tiger statue? That doesn't make any sense to have on a brew. Why couldn't we be a little bit more tailored into what brew? It really does seem like that the talent tree for monk needs a little bit of like love and a little bit of like a redesign in order to be like really great. So this whole thing of like why, like this talent tree being kind of wonky and being like a really button bloated kind of stuff is a problem that's like, I think is clear now that it's there. But when I'm not like fully focused on playing the monk, and especially not playing on the hardest difficulty or whatever, it really doesn't become that huge of a problem. It really just becomes a huge issue when you start like really spending a lot of time on the monk and pushing into really higher content. Because right now I can kind of take these things off. Like I can not pick Tiger Statue, and I can choose one of the Covenant abilities, and I will be mostly fine at the content that I'm pushing on the monk as an alt, and have an incredible amount of fun. But if I was going to main this, then I would probably I would have to really optimize it, and that would mean that I would have to deal with this talent tree and this bottom bloat, and I just really don't care much for it, to be honest. And then we have the Paladin. And oh man, am I tired of the Paladin. So yeah, I'm just gonna be upfront and say it. I really don't expect myself to play very much Paladin at all next season. And I just want to say that it actually is gonna look really great. That's not the issue. Like, numbers wise, yeah, top dollar, right? You're gonna be, if you want to pick Paladin and you have fun with Paladin, absolute power to you. You're not gonna pick wrong. You're gonna have a blast and everything. It's just, well, I think I kind of ruined Paladin for myself. Or at least, I could also just blame Blizzard for it. So back in Shadowlands Season 3, the Paladin's tier set actually made it so you would throw out Judgments every time you blocked, and you would have a block chance of like 60 or 70%. It was something extremely high, and you would get like, your combo points from every single time that you threw that hammer, meaning that you had such a fast, extremely fast rotational build, and you were just flying off with combo points all around. It was great, it was fun, you were extremely tanky. It was actually a really risky playstyle, because you would get one-shotted if you made a mistake and you didn't have Shield of the Righteous up. But it was like going so much faster, you could just like power through. It was so much fun. And then we got into Dragonflight, and of course they overall just made Paladin, in my opinion, slower. They removed the combo points from a ranging shield, which I just miss a lot, to be honest. I really do. And then also, and this is the thing that like really just made me not want to play Paladin next season, is the fact that I'm also getting tired of the consecration idea. And I mean, I get the idea that you put down this thing and you have to stand in it, but it's not fun. In my opinion, it's just not. It's not. And I think there's like some easy fixes to it, where you just like, make it as, the Death Knight. Either you make it so you don't really have to stand in it that much, as they don't really have to do in Death and Decay. They do get buffs, but it's not like mandatory to stand in it if you want to survive. Or just make it so you can like move it around, or like it pulsates from you and you can just like, always keep moving. Something like that I think could really help up this class for me personally. But as I said before, incredible tank if you want to play it. It's probably I mentioned that the Death Knight was like the solo tank, but the Paladin is just the puck tank. Like that's the tank that's gonna be the best for like pucking, right? Because you have so much utility. You have all these silences with like, Divine Toll and Venging Shield. You have like stuns. You have your own kick, of course. And then you also just have like these like support things. You have like, Dispels, Cleanse, Lay of Hands, Blessing, Auras. You are incredible. If you want to like, if you hate pucking and that's what you have to do, then Paladin's the way to go. Because you can basically just take care of almost everything. And if there's something that, if your group still wipes after all this, all you're going through, all your utility, there's nothing really much you can do. So Paladin, right now it's not for me. But if you choose that, then you're gonna have a great time. And then we have the Warrior, my absolutely beloved. The Warrior is incredible, and I honestly think it's the perfect tank, especially for someone like me. So first of all, I would honestly argue that like the Warrior, the Protection Warrior specifically, just has the best talent tree overall. Not like out of the tanks or DPS, but like from everyone, from every single spec. I think Protection Warrior has the best talent tree. And the reason for that is simply just that, you have so many options into this talent tree. You have so many builds. You have the talent, like the bleed build. You have like double shield wall. You have going into anger management. And there are builds that are perhaps doing more damage or has better utility or like better usage in like higher dungeons and stuff like that. But there is, overall this talent tree, there isn't really any choices where you completely lose out by choosing something over the other. Like every single choice, every single talent node in here is really, really great for the Warrior, sorry. And that means, like that this talent tree supports what I think is one of the most like interesting or most fun question when you're playing a tank. It's like, how much survivability will you trade in for damage, or how much damage will you trade in for survivability? Because that's the thing with this whole talent tree, where you just can, if you decide that you want to be a little bit more meatier, a little bit healthier, then you can choose that. Or if you want to, sacrifice some of it to like, get like more damage, that's also an option, and everything is just viable. And of course, the talent tree isn't just the only thing that's amazing about the Warrior. If you like fast-paced rotational gameplay, the Warrior is great. With anger management, which I think everyone takes, you like have inbuilt cooldown reduction, which I always praise. I always think it's incredible because it just makes the gameplay faster and, in my opinion, more fun. And that is definitely the case with the Warrior, where almost everything just goes off like cooldown quickly. You might not have the best group utility, but you do have extremely well utility to deal with different packs and have extremely good pack control. And with pack control, I also just mean that, like how fast and how like much can you like hold on to aggro. And with Warrior, you charge in and you press either shield charge and then you instantly have aggro, or you thunderclap and you instantly have aggro. And it's extremely easy to keep up with it. And yeah, you have AoE stuns, you have like multiple fears, AoE fears, you have AoE taunt, which is incredible to hold on aggro. So extremely easy to just pick out control of a pack, so like nothing escapes from you. And then of course you have, pretty, what honestly feels like standard, but it is really great utility. You have Shield Wall, of course, which is a huge 40% damage reduction from every single damage intake. Incredible. You have, Shield Block, which is absolute blocks all of like your physical attacks, which you know, most of like your damage intake is going to be from physical attacks, and you know, from the standard basic attacks from like mobs, and you just completely mitigate all of that. You have Ignore Pain, which is just a soap shield, and there is some wonkiness up there where, you know, you honestly want, you know, the magic damage, because spoiler alert, that's kind of what the warrior suffers the most from, is dealing with magic damage. You kind of want the Ignore Pain to take that, but sometimes it'll just get eaten up by all the physical, and then you left like basically naked. That's a little bit wonkiness, but honestly not that much of a huge issue now, simply because with the new talent trees, warrior got more things to deal with, you know, the with magic damage, because you always had, you know, Spell Reflect, which is absolutely one of the most fun, if not actually, no, I'm gonna double down that it is the most fun ability in the game, because it has such a high, you know, usage, and so interesting. You know, it's so much fun when you're getting targeted by a like really hard hitting mechanic, and you can just reflect that right back to the boss. No other tank, no other class can do something like that, which is such, when it actually like has a benefit, it is so huge, and you will love playing a warrior. But it also, you know, we also have, you know, spell block now, which for 30 seconds you can block spells, which, you know, with the warrior's high block chance, yeah, it's incredible. Like the weakness now is that, like, you know, the sorceress that does all that magic damage needs to die in those 30 seconds, or the warrior can be kind of, yeah, a little bit screwed. And then, of course, you know, we can't like not sleep on your impending victory, which is the one where, you know, you can just, basically it's just a free health bar, like a health pot. And that's also been one of the warrior's biggest weaknesses. Just like the monk, they also used to be kinda healing dependent, because, you know, they were supposed to mitigate all the damage, but they couldn't really heal themselves up in any way. And now you actually do. For 25 seconds cooldown, having a heal potion, sure, great. Actually, the warrior is in fantastic chance, like I said, right? You can't really go wrong with the warrior at all. All of that with their new tier set, which just buffs them even more, and just, you know, give them more survivability and just more overall damage. Sure, it's mostly like focused on single target, but you do reduce the range of like the different cooldowns of both Thunderclap, but also, you know, Dragon's War, which, yeah, increases your AoE damage in Mythic Plus. So Warrior seems to just become better than what they are now. So I'm gonna main the Warrior for next season, right? No, I'm actually probably not even going to play it that much at all for season 3. So yeah, why is that? You know, on the contrary from, like, you know, the Death Knight, it's nothing to do with Arms of Fury, which I both think are really, really fun classes, specs to play. What it actually has something to do with is simply just that I have played the Warrior for far too long. It was my main in Season 1, Protection Warrior. It was my main in Season 4. And I got into it for Season 3. So, like, I have played Warrior for, like, back-to-back for, like, a couple of seasons now. And also, you know, before that, Warrior was, like, the first tank that I ever really started playing, you know. It's an incredible tank, and I really, really love the gameplay of it. It's simply just, I just right now played it too much, and I really thought that maybe I could like come back to it, but no, it still needs to be a little bit on a break. It could change during the next season, which I'm really, really hopeful for, because yeah, it's an incredible tank. But for right now, I am still on my Warrior break. And then we have the Guardian Druid, or just the Bear, the king of Season 2. Wow, so yeah, the Bear went into Season 2 with both a rework, but then also just an absolute banger of a tier set, that if you're not aware, it basically is just that when you buff a Bear's maximum HP, you buff basically everything else, right? So all of the healing is scaled like accordingly to your max HP. So the more health the Bear has, the better it just absolutely becomes. That, with the fact that for this season there basically wasn't any dungeon that has really heavy magic damage, which, just like the Warrior, even more now than the Warrior, that's the Bear's biggest weakness. And going into the next season, it's kind of looking like there is going to be a lot more magic damage, which is definitely going to hurt on the Guardian Druid, as well as losing their tier set right now. So, Guardian Druid is just probably the only tank that is going into the next season weaker than what they are now. And it's going to be probably a lot weaker, to be honest. And it's not to be a meta slave, but meta is something that is important to consider if you do it. Don't get me wrong, it definitely seems like that the Guardian Druid is going to be absolutely variable, and you can definitely play it. If you love Guardian Druid, you can definitely make it work. It is just the fact that you probably have to work just a tiny little bit harder, or more play a little bit more cleverly than if you're playing with other tanks. But I mean, for the rest of it, the Guardian Druid kind of stays the same. It has, in my opinion, a little bit of a boring rotational abilities. It's kind of samey feeling, when you're just playing Thrash and stuff like that. But where the bear really shines is in two aspects. It has incredible cooldowns that is fun to use. With all of you, it is fun to out heal the healer, and having incredible with Iron Fur, with the passive mitigation and stuff like that. And then it also has really fun support kind of aspects to it. You give your healer Innovate and they can heal. You also have Dispel and Soothe, and then you also just do AoE healing through spending Rage. So yeah, it's a really fun. I really enjoy these support roles, and I really wish that they went even harder into it. Blizzard went made a support tank. I would absolutely love that. So yeah, I mean the Guardian Druid, I really can't lie. It really kind of has been a bit of a miss for me. I played it a bit in the start of this season, before Augmentation came out, because I did notice that they were incredibly strong and no one really played them that much. So I went into that, but the more that I played the Guardian, the more this rotation, the samey feeling, the kind of boring rotation kind of stuck out, and I was I'm not sure I would be able to completely main this just from that fact alone. It's just sad because going into the next 10.2, Bear are getting some incredible new forms. Just in general, Druid are getting a lot of love, for their different forms and stuff like that. So it is a shame that Bear probably won't be seeing that much playtime. But, it is what it is. And someone just has to be on the lower side. And I think it is fair now that they, have seen a lot of play here in season 2. So that only leaves one tank left, of course the Demon Hunter, which is actually going to be my main for 10.2 season 3 and going forward. So I actually have had my eyes on the Demon Hunter for a really long time. Since Shadowlands season 4, I believe, I started out liking a lot. Playing the Demon Hunter, playing the Dimensions Demon Hunter, specifically with how much mobility and utility you have, with all your sigils and jumping around, and then going into Dragonfly, we also get the Vengeful Retreat, meaning we can now backflip, which just again adds a whole nother level to your movement and your mobility, which is one of the Demon Hunter's biggest strengths in my opinion. The Demon Hunter is for sure the tank that has the highest amount of mobility, and it is actually something that goes into their kit, meaning that, it isn't completely unregular that you have to kite sometimes on the Demon Hunter, but honestly, with this toolkit and these mobility abilities, it's honestly kind of a skill expression that I actually really enjoy. It actually shows really good gameplay if you can actually know when to back off, when to kite, when to do a backflip and slow the enemies and stuff like that. That actually it becomes an element of the Demon Hunter that I actually enjoy. I don't really necessarily enjoy kiting too much, but specifically in the Demon Hunter, it kind of feels like that's somehow part of the class or the toolkit. And they excel really great at it. Of course, kiting isn't just your only defensive option, but defensively the Demon Hunter is kind of interesting. So, Demon Hunter for a very long time, if you look apart from the kiting aspect, doesn't really have had core defensive identity like some of the other tanks have. Like actually, you know, how the Death Knight, you know, his defensive all focuses on, you know, healing yourself back up and stuff like that, and the monk has the stacker effect and all that. The Demon Hunter actually just kind of takes elements from every other tank and then just combines them into this whole like jack of all trades, which might sound negative, but honestly it like you kind of just end up with a tank that just doesn't really suffer in any specific situations, and there are situations where they're just gonna be better tanks than the Demon Hunter. You know, for example, again with the Death Knight, you know, the Demon Hunter can self-heal and like, you know, sustain himself bar and everything, but the Death Knight will always do that just a little bit better. But with like all the other kits, like the high parry chance, you know, your damage reduction, like, you know, that spreads onto other targets, you actually have a well-around like toolkit to deal with like almost every single aspect or in this game. And then of course you have like your big main one, which is Metamorphosis, which is basically just a 3-minute cooldown where you jump into demon form and you basically just become unkillable. And the whole like gimmick is about like with the defensive with like the Demon Hunter is that you don't really necessarily have something up 100% of the time. So it's actually, you know, about using your defensives really like, you know, smartly and actually like, you know, spread them out. It's more important to spread your defenses out on a Demon Hunter than it is on other tanks, because on other tanks, you know, you might have something like Shield Block or Ignore Pain or Iron Fur to kind of just like even it out. You know, have something in these windows when you're not popping anything big. With the Demon Hunter, yeah, you do have Demon Spikes, but they actually don't really have 100% uptime, and you do get a buff when it like, you know, when it runs out of its duration, you get like a damage reduction buff. But that also, you know, lowers its value over the second. So that, you know, the Demon Hunter is all about making sure that like, you know, you're using your defensives in a smart way where you actually have them. You get the most out of them, and then you know also make sure that you have something for those windows in between your next big defensives. So actually, like what you have and what I felt completely in love with, you have a tank that is so extremely engaging to play with. Like you really have to like think ahead, you have to strategize, you have to know when to, and that's actually, as I mentioned before, with the whole like the cooldowns, and like you make sure you have something to like in between the windows of the other like defensive cooldowns. That's where you have kiting. So when you run out of everything, you can actually use kiting as like a strategy here, and like that's where like the Demon Hunter feels so amazing to play, because it really rewards the player who strategizes and thinks a little bit about their dungeon runs, which I really enjoy. And then of course you have incredible utility. You have, you know, your silence sigil that just completely silence a whole pack for 8 seconds, which is absolutely insane. Like how many packs you can just completely nullify by that. You have an AoE stun, you have of course your kicks and all that kind of stuff, and you also can have other sigils like the fear one, and you know the one that like, you know, pulls every mobs into like the middle of the sigil. So you do overall have like really great utility, specifically though for Mythic Plus, because that is one of the negatives about the Demon Hunter, is that they are kind of they haven't really seen any like the to world first progression like action at all, and they don't really see that much playtime in the raids, because simply just that the Demon Hunter just feels like it's made and tailored for Mythic Plus, because everything about it scales with AoE, specifically, you know, their damage, right? Their rotation with Spirit Bomb and the debuff that you put on the targets when you use Spirit Bombs. You know, that is just gonna like, the more mobs there is, you know, the more damage you do and the more like damage you mitigate. Like, so it really just, you know, it doesn't feel like it. It is great for Mythic Plus, a little bit, you know, bad from raiding, but I am not really planning on raiding too much next season. I'm gonna try out the raid, of course, but I'm actually don't really have any plans to, like, you know, Mythic progressing it or anything. I'm mainly focused on Mythic Plus, and that's why, you know, the Demon Hunter just feels great. The Demon Hunter has stayed an alt for me since basically Shadowlands. Absolutely love the tank, but going into Dragonflight here, I was quite a bit disappointed about the talent tree, So just to like point out, like my biggest problem in Shadowlands was basically just that it didn't really feel like Demon Hunter. Kind of just felt like Legion's Demon Hunter, and just like every single expansion just got some new abilities, but then like taking away a little bit and coming back in like some weird way. It just always felt like the class didn't really progress that much. So going into Dragonflight, I was really excited to see the talent tree, and ultimately I was kind of disappointed by it. So with the talent tree, there was basically just 2 builds. So you would basically always go left to pick up Frailty and also buff that throughout, because it feels absolutely mandatory to have that in order to play the Demon Hunter. But then you could also choose to go down the middle, where you would get cheap death, which is really, really great. But then more like for me, more personally, I love the talent where you would actually reduce the cooldown of demon spikes every time you like absorb some soul fragments. That talent gave the Demon Hunter such a interesting and fun playstyle, where you just, you know, trying to pump out as many soul fragments as you can get, so you can like almost keep demon spikes up 100% of the time, you know. Which really gave the Demon Hunter this like missing active mitigation that, you know, other tanks actually have, and that felt really, really great. And then you have the Fury brand build on the right, which is the one that like most people are playing with in this season, and it is extremely like so much fun. And it's basically where you just buff your Fury brand, which is the single target 40% damage reduction ability. You get 2 stacks of it, and more importantly, you get it to like, you know, actually spread out to the different mobs over the duration of it. I really just hated how I couldn't have both talents. I really wanted, like, I can see how it could be a little bit overpowered on, you know, getting every single thing, but I feel like there was a lot of the missing links between the trees. It was very difficult to go from one side of the tree over to the other. You really had to commit so many points just to get like these specific small ones that were like great talents, right? So I was really disappointed to, like, you know, just kind of being stuck with like these 2 simple builds where I kind of wanted a mix between them for the Demon Hunter to like really shine. But, you know, of course, then Blizzard decides that Demon Hunter needs the rework for 10.2, which I am all for, and the rework looks like it's going to be really, really great. So actually it's gonna, instead of like mixing these talents up, we are just basically gonna get a whole new build, which is just all about our sigils and, like, you know, reducing the cooldown of our sigils. And we did have a a mini version of this back in Shadowlands with a legendary and, like, I believe it's like double legendary Kyrian build, where you would, like, you know, use your Elysian degree, you know, getting your sigil outs and then reducing the cooldown of them. They was a little bit wonky to build because, yeah, it was a little bit wonky, but like this rework right here for 10.2 looked absolutely amazing. Also can't deny that, you know, it shouldn't matter, but like Demon Hunter is definitely gonna be, like, you know, numbers wise extremely incredible, so that also makes it a really like nice tank to pick out as a main. And then lastly here, as a positive, really also enjoy playing Havoc. It's great that, you know, I have a tank that, you know, has a DPS spec that not only is really, really fun, but it actually works in a really like great way as an ult, because Havoc is really flashy, it's really fast, it's a lot of fun for a small window, in my opinion. I don't think I could ever main Havoc, but it actually is really, really great for, like, when I just want to, like, okay, I'm so tired of tanking for a week or 2 resets, I just want to focus on Havoc, and I can absolutely do that because I don't need to go out and farm other gear. Basically, we use the same stats and Havoc as Vengeance, and you use the same weapons, you use the same... The only thing you really have to chase is basically just trinkets. And so that actually just means the switch between the TPS and the tank is extremely extremely easy, which is just gonna it's a huge positive in my book, and it's gonna be like a huge positive in the like long run of like playing this class or having this as a main. It's a really good thing to have playable options. So yeah, that's basically it. I'm gonna choose the Demon Hunter. It has great utility for Mythic Plus. It's really fast paced, both with its movement as well as like the rotation. It's a lot of fun. It looks like it's gonna be extremely strong, and it has a good DPS option for me to play as if I ever get tired or I wanted to, like, you know, try out something new. So yeah, please let me know in the comments what you guys have like considered what to main, and I can't wait to make content and see you guys in 10.2. Okay, take care everyone.